How's it going, my confident bakers? Hope you have an amazing day so far. Welcome back to another video. Today I'll show you how to make Pide, aka Turkish pizza. So let's get in the kitchen and get started. Oh, do I have something delicious for you today. It's not our first time making Pide, but it's such a great snack that it deserves a revisit. While I've kept the filling as per my original recipe, I have changed the dough significantly. Instead of using water, oil and egg, I decided to swap all those ingredients with yogurt. Yogurt is such a unique bread dough ingredient. It makes for extremely strong gluten, which allows us to add unreasonably large amounts of yogurt to dough without it ever feeling wet or sticky. So let's see what we need to make these delicious things. For the dough, we'll need some white bread flour, whole wheat bread flour, yeast, salt and 5% fat yogurt. When it comes to the filling, I chose ground beef, onion, red bell pepper, tomato, garlic, green onion, parsley, tomato paste, salt, paprika, black pepper, olive oil, an egg for the plain version, and cheese for the cheesy version. You can of course adjust the filling to your taste. Use different spices, use some different type of ground meat, and swap the vegetables for other ones. The great thing about flatbreads like these ones is that they are like a blank canvas which you can top with anything. Right, when it comes to the equipment, we'll need a tray with some non-stick baking paper, a bowl, scales, a dough scraper, a temperature probe, a pot for cooking the filling, and a rolling pin for rolling out the dough. Right, let's begin. And it all starts with temperature control. My kitchen was around 20 degrees Celsius or 68 degrees Fahrenheit. To get my dough to the correct temperature and make it rise effectively, I warmed up my yogurt to 24 degrees Celsius or 75 degrees Fahrenheit. To make the dough, pour the yogurt in a bowl, add the yeast, the salt, and the whole wheat flour. Give it all a good mix to dissolve the salt and yeast, and then add the white bread flour, grab your dough scraper, and mix it to a dough. This dough has a yogurt content of 112%, meaning that there's more yogurt than flour in this dough. And yet it feels like a 60% hydration dough. That is the magic of yogurt in bread dough. It's an ingredient unlike no other. Okay, once the dough is fully mixed, give it a quick temperature check, and decide whether you want to cold ferment it or ferment at room temperature. I'm cold fermenting my one, so I'm placing it in the fridge to cool down for 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, I'll give my dough a fold. If you decide to make bread on the same day, give it an hour and a half of bulk fermentation and punctuate it one fold halfway through, so 45 minutes in. This dough is not sticky at all, so you don't even need to flour your hands or wet them in water when folding it. Simply lift the dough out of the bowl, fold the edges down and push them back up into the center. Imagine that you're folding it on the table, but upside down. Once the dough ball is nice and tight, place it back into the bowl and then pop it in the fridge for the long cold fermentation of 18 to 24 hours. If you are fermenting at room temperature, fold it and then ferment it for 45 more minutes. Okay, whilst the dough is chilling, I'm going to make my filling. The filling in this recipe is pre-cooked. Pour the oil in the pan, set the pan on high heat, let the oil heat up, then add the white onions, green onions, garlic and bell pepper to it. Cook the vegetables for around 3 minutes until they have softened. Next, add the chopped tomato, salt, pepper, paprika, parsley and tomato paste. Basically everything except the beef. Give it all a good mix and then add the beef. Mix it all together and then keep cooking it for around 6 minutes whilst mixing occasionally. You want the filling to still be nice and juicy. And like I mentioned earlier, you can swap the ingredients, use other spices, different vegetables or different ground meat. The process for cooking the mix will still remain the same. Okay, it's been about 6 minutes and this is what the mix should look like when it's done. Take it off the heat, transfer it to a bowl and then leave it to cool down. If you're making your pide on the same day, you can spread the filling out on a tray to cool it down sooner. But my one's going in the fridge. Okay, it's been about 20 hours and my dough has puffed up nice and big. It looks good. It can now be weighed and divided. I'm making 4 portions, so I'm dividing it into 4 pieces. You can divide the dough into more pieces and make a bunch of mini ones, or you could divide it into 2 pieces and make 2 huge ones. In any case, this recipe will be enough for 2 very greedy people. And no matter how many pieces you decide to divide your dough in, you need to shape those pieces of dough into dough balls. To perform the shaping, take a dough ball, flatten it out, then fold the edge over the middle whilst going around in a circle to reach the point where it started. Then flip it smooth side up, tighten it against the table, that's your dough ball done. After shaping, cover up the dough balls and leave them for the final proof. The final proofing time will depend on the temperature of your kitchen. It took me around 2 hours at 18 degrees Celsius or 64 degrees Fahrenheit. If you are doing a room temperature bulk fermentation, it may take as little as 30 minutes. I'm also taking my filling out of the fridge to warm up the room temperature whilst the dough is proofing. This will make it easier to work with and it will help the dough bake more evenly. Start preheating the oven towards the end of the final proof. Set it to 200 Celsius, 390 Fahrenheit, fan on. If your oven doesn't have a fan, go for 220 Celsius or 430 Fahrenheit. Alright, the dough balls look nice and puffy. Now we can perform the final shaping. This here is the fun part. Dust dough balls in flour, give your table a dusting too. Take a dough ball, flatten it out by hand, and then continue by rolling it out with a rolling pin. You want to make it nice and big and oval. It should be more than 30 centimeters, more than a foot long. If the dough feels a bit sticky, just dust it with more flour. Once you're happy with the size and shape, arrange the pieces of dough on a non-stick paper lined baking tray. I'll be making 2 versions, and I'll bake them 2 at a time. I'll start with the plain one. I laid the filling out on a plate so I can easily divide it into 4. Spoon a quarter of filling on each piece of dough and then spread it out. Leave around 2.5 centimeter or 1 inch edge, and then pick that edge up and fold it over. Do that on both sides, and finally pinch the ends together, and you should end up with a nice little boat shape. The filling is a little bit crumbly, so if we leave it like this and then try to eat it, it might become a little bit messy, and that is where the egg comes in. Take 1 egg, whisk it up, and then pour half of it into each pide. It will hold the filling together. Right, these beauties are ready for the oven, so let's get them in there. They'll take around 15 minutes to fully bake. They're pretty quick. Of course, your oven might take longer, it might take less time. Just keep an eye on them. Once the crust is golden brown all over, they're ready. And by the way, you can also bake them on a steel or on a stone. It's up to you. Alright, they turned out beautiful. Well, let's leave them to cool down, make the other version. There ain't much different here. Dust the dough ball with flour, dust your table with some more flour, flatten the dough ball by hand, then roll it out with a rolling pin. Once you're happy with the size and shape, arrange the pieces of dough on a non-stick paper lined baking tray, spread out the remaining filling, whilst leaving a little edge of uncovered dough. But this time, instead of using egg, we'll sprinkle some cheese on top. It will also act as a glue that'll keep the filling together. And of course, cheese is delicious, so it's always a good addition. I use grated mozzarella, but you can use any cheese that you want. Fold over the edges, pinch the ends together, get those bad boys in the oven, bake them for 15 minutes, and that's about it. That's how you make pide. I had a great time revisiting this delicious recipe, updating the dough to contain some whole wheat flour for extra flavor, and to do a cold fermentation to boost the flavor even more, and to use yogurt instead of all the other ingredients. It all resulted in an excellent bake. The bread is beautifully soft, and the filling is nice and flavorful. It's an excellent meal in one. 1 or 2 of these, with some salad on the side, sounds like perfect lunch to me. And I think you will enjoy it too, so give it a go. So what do you think of this recipe? Have you tried making it before? Let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this one, click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.